When I was a kid, I often played in the alleyways between the apartment buildings due to my parents fighting all the time. It sounds pretty depressing, but I actually loved creating random imaginary worlds in those confined rectangular spaces. And I was lucky enough to not run into any shady characters. Well, at least most of the time. And if I did, they weren't really interested in stealing from a poor, dirty kid anyway. I wish I could say that nothing weird or disturbing things happened, but that's not how life works. You see, one evening a clown stepped into my alleyway. He was tall, muscular, but had a rather large stomach, shirtless but wore a dirty pair of slacks. He smiled at me as he made his way over to me. The blue, white, and red paint that covered half his body shone brightly underneath the streetlights. I sank into myself as he stood before me, blocking my path. He turned his ear towards my apartment and listened to the sounds of my parents fighting, before shaking his head in a disappointed fashion. "Parents, huh, kid?" I sheepishly nodded. "Well, don't worry. I've got something to cheer you up." Without warning, his arms stretched up into the air and squiggled around until they formed the word "hello" above him. Amused and amazed at this, I gasped happily and clapped. "Cool, huh? Now watch this." He pulled out a knife. Terror seized me. But instead of turning it on me, he cut off a long strip of his arm flesh and began folding it into something I couldn't see. Ta-da! And now I present you a sanitizer. He presented a rose made of flesh to me and sprayed it with a bottle he seemed to pull out of the air. He smiled and gave me the rose. "Now be a good kid. Have a happy childhood that I couldn't get." He then turned to the apartment wall and slammed a fist into it with so much force that it shook even the foundations. "Shut up!" My parents quieted themselves immediately. With a nod, he left. Years later, I still keep the fleshy rose that hasn't decayed to this day. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-3036. SCP-3036, also known as Stretchy, Clown Hunter Extraordinaire, resembles a humanoid circus clown that is composed entirely of human flesh, muscle, and an assortment of bodily fluids. 3036 does not possess a nervous system, skeletal system, nor reproductive system. However, 3036 speaks perfect English and can perform high-functioning tasks despite not having a brain. Interviews with 3036 tend to be calm and relaxed, and typically follows Foundation rules. 3036 is able to stretch its body to incredible proportions, with estimated full length to be over 100 feet for any part of its body pulled. 3036 does not feel pain when damaged or stretched due to lacking a nervous system. He is capable of self-regeneration should it receive any damage that isn't continuously inflicted upon it. There are two living entities conjoined at the hip and connected to 3036's throat by what appear to be feeding tubes that provide them with sustenance. 3036 says that these are his siblings and were given to him by his previous owner, Mr. Fuller, after successfully carrying out orders for him. An interview was carried out by Dr. Henderson. Dr. Henderson stepped into the room. He winced upon setting his eyes on 3036's grotesque appearance. 3036 waved his hand slightly with a sly smile. The doctor settled down and prepared his files. "Hello, 3036, or would you prefer Stretchy?" "Stretchy, please. I'd prefer my own stage name, thank you very much." "Very well. Stretchy, tell me, what was your job while employed by Mr. Herman Fuller at the circus?" "Well, first off, I was surgically modified to become this." Mr. Fuller and his team of doctors ripped my body open, took stuff out, put stuff in, and slapped some magic on me, and poof, you got me. 3036 stretched his arms out and spun his pointer fingers before his arms snapped back into place. "Right, and what did you do?" "I'm a clown hunter. Hunted down the more stubborn, rebellious clowns, those that didn't want to follow Fuller's orders. But Masky hated how successful I was at it." Now, I hear you ask, who is Masky? Well, Masky is just another clown hunter. He's strong just like me, but that's about it. Well, other than being able to look like anyone he wanted to. Annoying jerk he is. Dr. Henderson noted that 3036 appeared annoyed when he mentioned Masky. But I hope you guys like the circus, cause pretty soon, this place will turn into one. What do you mean? That means Masky will be coming. I suggest you be ready for him and his goon squad, sir. 3036 began to chuckle as Dr. Henderson hastily ended the interview. He gathered his files and stepped out of the room, leaving the clown laughing manically. Dr. Henderson immediately got into contact with the site director. Sir, you hear what the clown said? Around a year after 3036's interview, 3 unknown individuals who were described as clown-like in appearance raided Site 43 where 3036 was being held. A power outage allowed them to enter mostly unnoticed, as Foundation security personnel were dealing with maintaining order and prepping for potential breaches by other SCPs on site. When the 3 entities were noticed, security engaged them, but was almost defeated instantly and brutally mutilated. The site director closed off access to where 3036 was being held and called for MTF the Whistleblowers and MTF SCP, short for Sane Clown Posse, to aid the site in combating these anomalous beings. The few remaining security officers fought valiantly against them, but one of the entities managed to slip away and confront 3036. A brief recording between the two was recorded before they engaged in hand-to-hand combat. 3036 walked about casually in front of a furious-looking clown. Its lips squeezed into a wry smile, and its eyes watched the clown intently. Masky, it's been a long time, my friend. How do you do? It then performed a mock bow, which further irritated Masky. Not too well considering you're getting help from these 2 morons, eh? Dearie me, it looks like Fuller's hunters aren't what they used to be. The clown then grunted loudly. I know you can look like anyone you want to, but damn, do you sound stupid. You can't even sound like a proper human being to save your life. Masky had enough. It launched itself towards 3036. And I thought we're about to make up for old time's sake now. 3036's arm extended rapidly and pummeled Masky with such force it knocked it out of its cell. 3036 stepped out and was met with Masky's companions. And now, you're friends. 3036 then engaged with the 3 entities, showing great martial prowess despite sustaining heavy injuries and being outnumbered. Injured security personnel refrained from getting anywhere near them as the fight was barbaric and savage. They only watched from a distance. Some of them took the opportunity in the midst of chaos to pull their wounded away from the area. After a long, grueling fight that lasted nearly an hour, the task force teams arrived just in time as the 3 entities were about to give 3036 the killing blow. Seeing that they were now outnumbered by much more competent forces, they escaped through a transdimensional portal that was generated from a crude Jack-in-the-Box toy. Thank you for the timely rescue, gentlemen. The clown in distress here could really use a hand, you know? 3036 wiggled his body from side to side to show his missing arms and the strips of flesh that hung off his body. The men lifted 3036 up in disgust. Dr. Henderson arranged an interview the next day. He walked into the room and was stunned for a moment when he saw 3036 looking at him from the other side of the desk, sitting stupidly with its disproportionately small growing limbs. I've been wondering, why did you allow yourself to be recaptured? You've shown to be capable of defending yourself. Come on, Doc, do you not see these? Those freaks did a number on me. Dr. Henderson studied 3036 briefly and said, Freaks, huh? Yeah, whatever. The point is, I could take any of them on, but 3 of them, fat chance. But I put up a pretty good fight, didn't I? Those jerks couldn't finish me off even after an hour. Still, I think I deserve a reward for being a good lad, don't I? How about a deck of playing cards and an extra half hour of free time? I can get you the cards, but I'll have to see about the extra free time, he said as he got up to leave the room. Under the orders of the site director, Site 43 beefed up their security and kept MTF Sane Clown Posse on site in case they were ever attacked again by the anomalous foes of 3036. No attack has occurred since then, and 3036 has remained compliant with the Foundation and has even expressed interest in joining an MTF squad so that he can put his hunting abilities to good use. Help the people who helped him. Only fair, right? He wakes up panting, trying to find his breath. The memories of that unfortunate day flood into his room. His half-naked, beaten and bruised body picked and disposed of like a starving street urchin. His back marked by an eerie, clown-like smiley, and the tortures brought on him by the child breakers, who are without mercy. They pick the most unfortunate ones from the streets, those with no background, no guardians. Then they go down to the smallest inches of their bones and beat it until each bone is crooked and funny enough to make the clowns of the circus. The ultimate gags and cheer for the society, but never to be loved or accepted by them as human, and to be fed on some weird circus beans and purple liquid for a lifetime. That's how they breed an ultimate freak. Ever since his escape from Camperchicos, Josh could never sleep peacefully. The traumas of the past haunted him even though it was decades ago, and he was an adult now. But all these freaks brought together to put on a show of their miseries had a price to be paid by the town. 20 years later, it was all starting again. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a SCP Foundation neutralized object, SCP-2912. SCP-2912 designates 3 roughly humanoid organisms resembling typical circus clowns. All of them had undergone severe and varied corporeal and psychological augmentation. With black and white skin forming horizontal stripes around its body, SCP-2912-1 resembles an air-filled balloon, able to transport itself through the air, with its only vocalization being the sound of party horns. SCP-2912-2 had yellow skin covered in red polka dots, standing at 2.56 meters tall with no eyes and a bulbous red nose. It could produce music from its asymmetrical and disjointed body. Lastly, the SCP-2912-3 is similar to the other two, with its face paint being its natural appearance. However, it can produce cream pies seemingly out of thin air. Not just that, but he vocalizes only with shriek laughter and can trigger uncontrollable laughter among the listeners that can last from 6 to 32 hours. Along with the clowns, a person of interest who calls himself Dick C. Normus, designated as POI 4569, was also found during the Foundation's raid on a fairground that had hosted Herman Fuller's Circus of the Disquieting. It was the 10th of May, 1998. The town was finally witnessing cheerful moments of relief. The carnival was all cheery, except for the abominations of Herman Fuller's Circus of the Disquieting. To Josh, it was discomforting that it was just hopeless clowns performing for the sake of money. It was not long that Josh noticed the Foundation investigators arriving at the carnival. He reached out to them and was informed about the hunt for clown breeders. Upon hearing the name, Josh turned pale. Before he could manage to collect his thoughts, one of the personnel shouted, "There! That tent!" They started running towards the tent. But what happened next made him doubt reality. The tents they were approaching started disappearing one after another, until one last tent was remaining, in which the clowns and Dick C. Normus were found. Since then, Josh has escaped from the circus and eventually joined the Foundation as a transferred child abduction expert 20 years later. He has been sent specifically to assist in the wake of recent disappearances of children. The disappearances started exactly 6 weeks ago, with the first child getting abducted being a 9-year-old from the Candy Carnival in West Wonderville. What started as a usual case of abduction soon spiraled into something way more sinister as it started multiplying. More and more children started disappearing from different carnivals throughout the town, with the most alarming thing being no follow-up calls to ask for any kind of ransom. The investigation was conducted by Josh. Upon questioning 4569 about his role, he revealed that he worked as what was called the clown breeder for Herman Fuller, the boss of the Circus of the Disquieting. Further investigating, Josh asked, "What is this profession about?" To which 4569 described, "Well, in the real old days, you didn't have no breeders. Back then, the best we had was child breakers." Josh shuddered at the words child breakers. 4569 seemed to notice. He grinned and continued speaking. The good old days when people used to laugh and get entertained by the laughing man, Turtle Boy. Hell, the Inside Out girl are all gone now. They need designer clowns now, and I give Mr. Fuller the world-class clowns. Would you see these not-so-funny freaks? They are not even good business, let alone lucrative. These numbskulls can't even pull off a good show. But Mr. Fuller and I have decided something big for the next carnival. More young clowns fashioned our way. You will see very identical faces, sir, mostly from your own town. This carnival will be something that will... Suddenly, a loud thud and bang were heard across the room. Josh immediately got onto his phone and connected to the personnel in charge. Sir, the clowns have exploded on their own, and there's blood and confetti and some kind of black liquid all over their rooms. Upon hearing those words, Josh turned pale. 4569 cocked his head to one side and let out a chuckle. Oh, look at that. What's wrong, Josh? Something's wrong? Did the clowns explode or something? What did you do to them? By then, 4569 had turned angry and said, "You fellas forgot to milk the clowns, didn't you? Way to ruin a decade of work, you idiots." As Josh turned to leave, 4569 said to him, "Hope life outside the circus is treating you well, Josh." That last remark sent chills down Josh's bones. It seemed that his past would catch up to him wherever he goes and haunt him forever. The matter was yet to be understood, and the subject was interviewed but failed to deliver the required information. 7 months later, on the 25th of December, the surveillance camera inside POI 4569's room recorded an unidentified individual entering the cell. It appears muscular, but further details are obscured by a cloud of smoke, which permeated the cell via the anomalous doorway. "About time you got here. Is that a smile or a frown? I could never tell with you." "A liability? Come on, I'm the best clown breeder you got, and Mr. Fuller knows it." And then POI 4569 was heard crying for help, but security personnel were unable to reach him in time. Soon enough, all that had become a long-forgotten memory as the cases died down once again. The crowd cheered as the mayor of Wonderville took the stage. He waited for the applause to settle down before he welcomed the people to the grand opening of a brand new chain of carnivals. In the distance appears tents of the circus with hideous clown-like figures seen laughing manically, sharpening their axes. The words are heard. "The show must not stop. The clowning must go on. We will come to get you too." Somewhere in Salem, Oregon, 1988. It was raining, but only gently, the sound of it falling on her umbrella no more than a soothing pitter-patter. "This is a pretty little neighborhood, don't you think?" Icky asked as she strolled down the sidewalk, the violet coloring of her face subdued to avoid drawing notice to her bosomorphic nature. "It's still humdrum territory. Don't get too comfortable." Manny adjusted his scarf and hat to hide his upside-down face. They turned a corner and came upon a small park with a lone girl running along the play equipment, talking to herself in a loud, pontificating voice. At first, Icky thought it was odd that the girl was playing in the rain, but then realized that it wasn't raining inside of the park. That's her. I'll let you take the lead. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a tale from the SCP Foundation. The two of them walked towards the front gates and saw that they were locked. A sign had been hung reading, "Royal Kingdom of Queen Sophie. Go away." The inside of the park was littered with countless toys and candy wrappers, buoyant balloons that bobbed up and down, and a fountain full of chocolate milk. Icky cleared her throat and said, "Excuse me, may we speak with Queen Sophie, please?" "Who dares intrude upon the greatest sorcerer queen in all the land?" the girl demanded, marching towards the entrance with a plastic staff in hand. She was a redhead, maybe about 8 years old, and looked like she hadn't had a bath for some time. Her sparkling tutu and Care Bears t-shirt were covered in dirt and chocolate. "Just a humble circus performer, Your Majesty, and her companion," Icky replied with a polite curtsy. "You'll kneel if you don't wish to face my wrath." Icky humored her without hesitation, but Manny was a tad more reluctant. "I said kneel, foreigner." Icky gave Manny a stern look. "Get on your knees, idiot," she mouthed to him, barely managing her smile. "Just what we need, another high-maintenance reality bender," he murmured as he dropped to one knee. "Now, explain why you have interrupted my eternal playtime." "Of course, Your Majesty. We're from a community of magical people, like yourself, and I'm the only magic girl in the world." "Do you really think that? Is that why you're all alone in there?" "Other people are scared of me. Kids, my parents, even the police and soldiers in black ran from me. It's better if I just stay here." Icky then slowly let the bright violet to return to her lips, cheeks, and eyes. "I'm magic too. So is he." Manny pulled down his scarf to fully reveal his upside-down face. Sophie eyed them both with cautious optimism. You're really magic?" "Yes, and we're from a place full of magic people, a place where people won't be scared of you, where you can have friends again, where you'll be safe and loved and learn how to become even better at magic. If you're really good, we might even—" Suddenly, a bullet whizzed through one side of Sophie and out the other. As her body hit the ground, all of her balloons floated away, her chocolate fountain ran dry, and the rain fell unhindered inside of the park. "No!" Icky screamed as she broke through the gates and rushed to Sophie's side, cradling her in her arms. "Sophie! Sophie! Sweetie, wake up! Please wake up! Sophie!" She applied her magic as best she could, but there was nothing she could do. "Scoop her up and let's go. It's the GOC. We've got to get out of here." Icky glanced at the crumpled bullet on the ground and saw that it was silver-tipped beryllium bronze around a layer of telekill and an iron core, with warding microgrids engraved into each layer. It wasn't just the Global Occult Coalition, but the Ichabod campaign. They had killed tens of thousands of reality benders over the decades, mostly like this. A sniper shooting down a child before they had any chance to fight back, or grow up to become a serious threat. To become anything. Icky howled in rage. Pulling a tetherball post out of the ground for a weapon, she sped off in the direction the bullet had come from. "Icky, no! It's suicide! Icky, damn it!" As enraged as she was, she kept a clear head. She never ran straight for more than a couple of seconds, and weaved behind any cover she could find. She couldn't manipulate those bullets with her telekinesis. If enough of them got inside of her, they'd impede her magic too much for her to heal. A single shot to the brain or heart would kill her for sure. Icky headed for the highest point along the bullet's trajectory, and on the top of a small hill, she saw the outline of 10 cloaked GOC strike team members, the rain giving away their position. The sniper was still trying to get a lock on her, but the rest of them were clearly holding assault rifles at the ready. She pulled out her deck of trick cards and threw them all at the strike team before leaping down a manhole into the sewers. She knew their battle dress had the same reality anchoring and anti-thaumaturgical protections as their bullets did, so she didn't aim for them directly. Instead, all 54 cards hit the pavement surrounding the strike team with so much kinetic energy that enormous amounts of concrete shrapnel went flying in all directions at deadly velocity. She heard the men screaming in surprise, pain, and then anger. She could hear one was hurt and barking orders at the rest, but she was willing to bet she'd incapacitated at least a few of them. They'd have their guns pointed at any manholes or sewerage grates around them, so she headed to the next manhole that still gave her a clear line of sight. She lifted it just a little and saw 6 remaining strike team members standing in a defensive back-to-back formation. She threw the manhole cover with so much force that it decapitated one of the gawkers and likely killed the team member directly behind him. She rapidly ducked under the gunfire of the remaining strike team, but made no attempt to hide. After only seconds of running, the gunfire ceased, replaced by the sounds of empty magazines hitting the ground. Icky moved in for the kill. She struck the commander across the head with the tetherball post, scoring yet another decapitation. The last 3 reached for their sidearms, but she dropped to the ground and took out their legs with one sweep of the post. She impaled it through the chest of one of them, kicked off the head of another, and jumped onto the third, and began mercilessly pounding his head into ground beef with her fist. She screamed until there was no skull left, and she was just punching the pavement. She hung her head and began to sob, but then heard a groan coming from behind her. One of the strike team members was still alive. His visor had been shattered, and Icky could now see the man's eyes. One blue and one green. She pulled the tetherball post out of the corpse's collapsed chest and swung it at him. The moment it made contact, it turned to sand in her hand. Taken aback, she stepped away from the man, unsure of what just happened. The man took off his now useless helmet, shaking dust and sand out of his blonde hair. The two of them quickly became stained with crimson streaks as the rain around them turned to blood, and she had no doubt it was his doing. She lunged to tear out his trachea. Without moving, he shifted out of her path, as if he had never been there at all. With a single motion of his fist, he called down a bolt of lightning to end her for good. Icky merely spasmed with an eliminated skeleton and survived with nothing worse than some singed hair and clothes. Well, that's a first. What's it going to take to put you down this time? She charged at him again and slipped on the blood. It congealed around her and strapped her to the ground, constricting around her torso like an anaconda. She couldn't summon enough strength to break free, nor enough magic to overpower whatever it was he was doing to her. It was getting harder to breathe. Should have taken the bullet, sweetheart. This ain't going to be pleasant, for both you and me. There was still one thing she could do. As much as she hated being a damsel in distress, it was definitely preferable to being dead. Hey, have you ever heard of the man with the upside-down face at the Circus of the Disquieting? The man scoffed at the nonsensical question, but went pale as he recognized the feeling of something foreign probing around inside his mind. "Hello, Francis," whispered a voice with no actual sound. The man with the upside-down face was inside his head, looking for anything that he could use against him, and it didn't take him long to find it. The man saw Lily, the goddess Francis lived in constant fear of. The man saw the constant disrespect, the unending criticisms, the vicious insults, all because he wasn't good enough for her. If he could just be the person she deserved, she would be nicer. He laughed. The laughter of the man with the upside-down face echoed through Francis's skull. It was all he could hear. The man laughed at Francis's helplessness, at his weakness, at his failure at being a man. The man laughed at how pathetic Francis was beneath his tough guy facade. The man laughed and laughed and laughed, until in Francis's mind there was nothing else but the laughter and the deafening, ego-destroying thoughts. The rain had turned to water again. Icky was free, and the treacherous gawker had collapsed into a fetal position on the ground, rocking back and forth while clutching his head and sobbing, begging Lily not to hurt him. Icky moved in to finish him, but heard Manny's voice in her mind telling her to leave him be and run. As much as she hated to leave a gawker breathing, it was probably best to take her chance at escaping while she had it. She spat on him before she ran. Several hours later, Icky knelt over the shallow grave she and Manny had dug for Sophie in Mount Hood National Forest. She had transfigured a boulder into a proper tombstone. It read, "Here lies Queen Sophie, age unknown but far too young, victim of the Ichabod genocide. May she find peace in what lies beyond, and may her loss forever remind us why we fight against the book burners. Sleep sweetly, Your Majesty." Icky wept. Manny put his arm around her, wiping her tears as she laid his head up against him. "It's a nice headstone. I'm sure she would have liked it. What about the gawker? He won't remember us. I took that away. But he was too powerful for me to do any lasting damage. I hope we don't ever cross paths with him again. He had some serious issues. I don't give a damn what his excuse is. He's a monster." Icky then let out an exhausted sigh. "Thanks for saving me back there. I owe you one. You'd have done the same for me. We should get going. If we're not back at the circus soon, Stretchy might think something happened and start searching for us. We don't want to let them worry." Icky nodded softly. She kissed her fingers and touched them to the gravestone. The clown and the freak rose to their feet, leaving the swiftly yet lovingly made grave in peace among the dripping pine needles and gently falling rain.